It was a brisk afternoon, and Marcus walked down the quiet road, his thoughts drifting like the autumn leaves that fell gently to the ground. His relationship with Sarah had grown stagnant over the past few months. Silent dinners, long stretches of unspoken words, and an unsettling sense that something vital was missing. He wasn't sure what it was, but he knew he had stopped feeling the spark that once made him feel alive. The weight of his unspoken dissatisfaction clung to him like a shadow. As he walked, his mind wandered through the endless loops of his daily routine. His feet carried him along the path, but his heart was elsewhere, heavy with the monotony of life. That was when the car pulled up beside him. The sudden sound of an engine startled him from his reverie, and he looked up to see a woman smiling at him from behind the wheel. She was in her mid-20s, her dark hair cascading down her shoulders in loose waves. She leaned over slightly, her eyes bright with a friendly gleam. "Need a ride?" Her voice was warm, with just a touch of curiosity, as if she had known him for much longer than the few seconds their eyes had met. Marcus hesitated, scanning her face, then the interior of her car, as though searching for some sign of danger. His instincts told him to decline, to stick to the familiar rhythm of his life, but something about her smile was disarming. There was an openness in her eyes that made him feel seen, maybe even desired. "I'm good, thanks," he said, his voice betraying the uncertainty that lingered. He hadn't meant to refuse her offer so quickly, but his internal walls were still high. She raised an eyebrow, the playful glint in her gaze deepening. "Are you sure? It's a long walk, and I'm heading your way." His hesitation lasted only a moment before something else inside him broke through the wall of caution. "Well, I suppose a quick ride wouldn't hurt." His voice held a note of resignation, but his curiosity was winning. "Great," she said, her smile widening as she unlocked the passenger door. "I'm Ella, by the way." "Marcus," he replied, settling into the seat beside her. As the car began to move, the world outside seemed to blur, as though the mundane day he had been trudging through had shifted into something more unpredictable. The scent of her perfume, a light, floral fragrance, mingled with the cool air flowing through the open windows. They exchanged pleasantries, and the conversation flowed easily, like a song playing softly in the background of a film. Ella asked questions about his life, about his work, and Marcus found himself opening up more than he had intended. It wasn't long before the tension began to build, imperceptibly at first. The way she laughed at his stories, the way her hand brushed the gearshift, their eyes meeting for just a second too long, it all felt strangely intimate, as if the world outside the car had ceased to exist. "I didn't expect to pick up a hitchhiker today," Ella said with a mischievous glint in her eyes, her voice dropping to a softer, more teasing tone. Marcus couldn't help but smile, but there was an edge to it. He couldn't tell if it was just playful banter, or if there was something more behind her words. His mind began to race. Why was she being so friendly, so open? Was it just coincidence, or was there something about her that made him feel seen? The car hummed along the road, and as they neared her house, Marcus realized that this ride had turned into something far more intriguing than he had ever expected. As the car neared Ella's house, Marcus felt the unease creeping in again. The road had become quieter, the houses farther apart. He had thought about getting out before reaching her home, but there was an odd pull he couldn't resist. Something about her made the air feel thicker, heavier, as if there was an unspoken tension that neither of them acknowledged directly, but both felt. "So, Marcus," Ella broke the silence, her voice soft yet probing, "what brings you out here today?" Her question felt oddly personal, too direct for a simple car ride, and yet Marcus found himself answering her with a truth he hadn't admitted even to himself. "I don't know, really. Just needed a change of scenery, I guess. Life's been mundane." Ella's eyes flicked to him quickly, a knowing smile curling at the corners of her lips. "Mundane," she repeated, as if savoring the word. "I know that feeling. It's like you're stuck in a routine, and no matter what you do, it's the same thing every day." Marcus nodded, unable to disagree. He was used to the grind of work, home, repeat. It had been like that for months, maybe longer. Ella's presence, her energy, was a stark contrast to the hollow routine he'd been living. I think sometimes, she continued, her voice dropping a bit lower, you need a little jolt. Something unexpected. There was a pause, one that lingered longer than it should have, and Marcus felt the weight of her gaze upon him. For a moment, their eyes met in the rearview mirror. A connection, brief but unmistakable. It was as if she was daring him, testing how far he was willing to go. She turned onto a narrower, more secluded street, and as they neared her house, she spoke again. I'm glad you didn't turn me down earlier. It's nice to have someone to talk to. The words lingered in the air, and Marcus wasn't sure if they were just words or if they carried more weight. He felt a pull in his chest, a gnawing feeling that made him want to say something, anything, but he stayed silent. They turned into her driveway, and the car came to a stop in front of a small, unassuming house. Here we are, she said, unbuckling her seatbelt with ease. She glanced at him with a raised eyebrow, almost as if she was inviting him in, but without saying a word. It was the kind of invitation that made him feel like he had a choice, even though deep down he knew he didn't. He could leave. He could say goodbye and never think about this again. But something inside him wanted more. For a moment, there was an awkward pause, and then Marcus found himself following her out of the car. His heart was beating faster now, but his feet moved as if they were no longer his own. Ella led him to the door, and as she turned the knob, she glanced back at him with a playful glint in her eye. I hope you don't mind a little company. Marcus wanted to say something, to voice the warning bells that were ringing in his head, but he didn't. Instead, he stepped inside, the door closing behind him with a soft click that echoed louder than he'd expected. The tension in the air was palpable now, and Marcus could feel it in every breath he took. The moment had shifted, and there was no turning back. The door clicked shut behind him, and Marcus stood in the dimly lit entryway of Ella's home. The atmosphere was unexpectedly intimate, the air thick with the kind of tension that made his pulse quicken. The room smelled faintly of jasmine and vanilla, and soft music played in the background, something soothing, yet disarming. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this alive, this charged. Can I get you something to drink? Ella's voice, smooth and inviting, cut through his thoughts. Marcus hesitated, glancing around at the cozy, lived-in space. Her home was modest but warm, filled with little details that spoke of a woman comfortable in her own skin, an eclectic mix of books, art, and plants. It was a place that made him feel welcome, even though he didn't belong here.
Sure.
A drink would be nice, he finally said, his throat dry despite the cool air. Ella led him toward the kitchen, where soft, golden light spilled over the counters, casting long shadows across the room. As she busied herself preparing something, Marcus leaned against the doorway, watching her with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She moved with ease, her body swaying slightly to the rhythm of the music, as if she were entirely at home in the moment. You seem quiet all of a sudden, she remarked, her eyes flicking over her shoulder with a sly smile. I thought you were a bit more talkative on the road. Marcus cleared his throat, unsure of how to respond. He hadn't meant to fall silent, but her presence was unnerving in the best possible way. He wasn't used to this, being in a stranger's space, caught between the familiarity of his own life and the undeniable allure of something new, something thrilling. I'm just not used to this, he said slowly, trying to find the words. It's a lot to take in. Ella nodded, her smile softening. I get it. But sometimes it's good to let go, right? Break free from the routine. The tension between them crackled in the air, and Marcus found himself leaning forward, his curiosity outweighing any remnants of hesitation. There was something magnetic about her, a force that drew him in with every passing second. As she handed him a glass of wine, their fingers brushed. It was brief, but it felt electric. For a moment, Marcus considered stepping back, pulling away from whatever this was before it went too far. But the thought didn't last long. The pull to stay, to see where this would lead, was stronger. You're not going to leave now, are you? She asked, her voice low, almost teasing. We've barely started. Her words hung in the air like an invitation, and Marcus felt a stirring inside him that he hadn't felt in months, maybe longer. The part of him that had been starved for excitement, for passion, suddenly surged to the surface. He swallowed hard, setting the glass down on the counter with a deliberate motion. "No," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "I'm not going anywhere." Ella's eyes flashed with something unreadable, a glimmer of triumph, or maybe something deeper. She closed the distance between them slowly, deliberately. When she reached him, she didn't speak. Instead, she placed her hand on his chest, a touch so light that it sent a shiver down his spine. Without thinking, without the usual caution he would have exercised in any other situation, Marcus leaned in. His lips met hers with an intensity that surprised them both. The kiss was soft at first, testing the waters, but soon it deepened, driven by a shared desire neither of them could ignore. In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist, and all that mattered was the electric connection between them, the pulsing beat of a dangerous rhythm neither of them could stop. And when they pulled apart, breathless, Ella's eyes met his with a mixture of satisfaction and something darker, something that made Marcus wonder just how far this would go. The uncertainty lingered, but the excitement was undeniable. He couldn't walk away now. He wouldn't. The room felt charged with an intensity that lingered in the silence after the kiss. Marcus stood there, his chest rising and falling with each breath, his mind racing. The exhilaration was immediate, sharp, and foreign. It was unlike anything he had felt in months, maybe even years. But beneath the excitement was a sinking feeling, one that crept in quietly, tugging at him with every passing second. Ella stepped back, her fingers lingering on his chest before she slowly withdrew them. Her smile was knowing, confident, as though this was exactly what she had wanted. "You look surprised," she said, her voice low but playful, as though she were testing him. Marcus opened his mouth, searching for words, but none came. The truth was, he didn't know what to say. His emotions were a tangle of desire, guilt, and confusion. He had crossed a line, one he hadn't expected to cross, especially not with someone like her. But the pull was undeniable. "I didn't expect this," he finally said, his voice rough with uncertainty. His hand was still frozen where it had rested on the counter, as if he were holding himself in place, trying to maintain control. Ella tilted her head slightly, as though evaluating his response. "You didn't expect to kiss me, or you didn't expect to feel this way?" Her question hit him harder than he anticipated. He hadn't come here looking for a confrontation with his own desires, but that's exactly what had happened. He had wanted to escape the monotony of his life, but now that he was face to face with the reality of his actions, it felt like a choice he couldn't undo. "Both," Marcus admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The words felt heavy, but they were the truth. "I wasn't planning on any of this. But now, I don't know." Ella stepped closer again, her presence overwhelming. "You don't have to know right now," she said softly, almost coaxingly. "Sometimes the best moments come when you stop questioning everything and just feel." He wanted to argue, to say that it wasn't that simple, that there were consequences, that he had a life outside of this moment. But the part of him that was hungry for something more, something new, was growing louder. He had been so starved for excitement, for something to break him free from the monotony of his routine. And in this moment, with her standing in front of him, he was completely consumed by the pull. Marcus glanced at the door. He could leave, walk out into the night, and return to his reality, to the life he'd been slowly suffocating in. But the thought of stepping back out there felt distant, impossible now. "I should go," he said quietly, but the words didn't hold any conviction. He didn't move. Ella's eyes softened, almost as if she had anticipated his hesitance. "Leaving won't change anything. It's already happened. We're already here." Her words sank into him, and for a moment, all he could hear was the sound of his heartbeat in his ears. He was trapped by his own desires, by the guilt he hadn't fully acknowledged yet, and by the undeniable chemistry between them. Ella reached up to gently touch his cheek, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Her touch was tender, but there was an undercurrent of something more, something that made his resolve crumble just a little more. "You don't have to choose right now," she whispered. And just like that, he didn't know what to do anymore.